Ann and I first met each other when we were both working together at the global design firm Gensler.
Gensler.
Gensler, Washington, D.C. So that was kind of the headquarters of the Southeast region. And was working in the workplace studios, right? It was a workplace.
Well, I did a couple. I worked in the what was once Gensler, Northern Virginia.
Oh, that's right. I
Yes,
forgot. Yeah.
yes. That I love that crew. They're still like my family, everyone that worked there with us. And then I transferred to DC to do hospitality. So you and I were in the hospitality studio
That is
together
right.
because
We
I
were,
just had too much personality to do government work.
which is absolutely true. And I'm glad you found that path for yourself.
Yes, yes. So then Matt and I sat next to each other and giggled and giggled and giggled. I think we were often told to keep it quiet. I feel like
Yeah.
Laura Latham, hi Laura, often told us to be quiet.
Yeah, which is odd because I feel like Laura Latham, of all the people I know, is also the one that has a house full of mannequin heads and things
Yeah,
like that. So it
and
didn't
fun
make sense.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so and
We,
what the first project we worked on was it some Latham and Watkins law firm stuff?
oh God, I don't remember, but I know you and I
Well,
did
EU.
EU together, and that was really fun.
And so when
It
you guys
was,
do hear us talk about EU, what that means is that is the delegation for the European Union headquarters here in Washington, D.C. It's located on Washington Circle. It is effectively the embassy for the European Union.
I don't know if I ever even knew that.
Well, now you do.
Yeah,
You
but it was
It
fun.
was awesome. And a great team. We were working with Antonello
Canelo.
Antonello. I know, great accent, and
Elena
Elena
Fiamengo.
Fiamengo, also fantastic Italian
Yeah.
accent. The clients were great.
Oh, they were so nice. And that was at a period in time in which construction costs actually went down. Do you
Correct.
remember that? So they
It was
got
weird.
like a steal for
Yes.
their build out.
They got a steal for the build out. And the one thing to keep in mind is they did not take over a new building. They took over an older building that was what we call kind of repositioned. And what that means is you take an older building, you kind of reconfigure it, you give it like new inside, new outside, new public spaces as well. So that means like lobbies and stuff like that. And then they took over the top 4 floors and they added an additional floor, I think,
I
at the
don't
top.
remember any of this, but I just remember, that we did all those really cool graphics and we had to make sure that the lighting was perfect and
Which does
um
bring us to the germane thing on the topic. The
yeah,
lighting was
lighting.
lighting was a big part actually of that project because not only did we do things in the public areas, they had a press room that was down on the main
That was
floor.
so fun to work on.
Well, and that so remember we created this
That
timeline.
long hallway with the timeline and then we had the flag timeline to or something
Yes.
like that too, the
The flag fins.
fins.
Yep. So interesting thing about when you're repositioning a building, you have to do some weird things with the layout. And in order to get people into a security perimeter, because this is an embassy, and then into more of a public space, which necessarily needed to be on that ground floor for press conferences, things like that, we had to do some weird gymnastics from a plan standpoint. So it meant that we had this long, deadly corridor with like nothing in it
Nothing
that
on
people
it,
had to
yeah.
go down, and then you had to turn a corner, go down another corridor, and then end up in this press room. So we decided to take advantage of that and make it something that was meaningful.
And it was backlit, right? It was a
It was
backlit
backlit,
timeline.
and
That
it
was
was
before everyone was doing timelines, and then after that, everybody did
well,
timelines.
people had done timelines
Trendsetters.
before, but timelines are boring, right?
But
If
we
it's
made
just
it spicy.
we made it spicy by taking away information. We took away like,
Mhm.
the line with all the dates and instead made it this very sort of abstract graphic. So all that stuff
Mhm.
was in there. It was a glass that
Back
looked like
painted glass,
back painted
right?
glass, and then we laminated multiple things within the graphics. It was a super complicated process to actually laminate those graphics. So what it looked like is a back painted glass wall, and these words were glowing from behind it, just kind of floating in
That's
there.
right. This was so long ago, guys. I think this was like 2007 or 8.
I think it was
It was right before I
yeah,
moved to
it was
Seattle.
yeah, it was 2007 or 8.
It's a long
Um,
time ago.
yeah,
God,
and then you
whoops.
turn the corner, and so there's these glass fins. Another, terrible thing that you have to deal with when you're dealing with multi-governmental agencies is they want to put all the flags of the countries that are there, which is great. Obviously,
Oh,
they're
yeah, I
including it,
remember. We were
but
like, oh my gosh, how are we going to put all the flags on
because it's going
there?
to be so ugly because they can be really dusty and they cannot look good. So we decided to make them also back painted glass graphics. It was a system that allowed them to expand their membership.
No, I remember because you and I got the inspiration from a picture of some building in China that had different Chinese flags hanging on fins.
Mhm.
And you and I were like, oh, what if we put all the different flags on fins and then up and down
And
lighting?
we
We
made the
like edge lit
fins.
it.
Yeah, we had these great. They were like MR16s, I think, up in between
Back
there.
when people used those,
Back when people use those, obviously you would retrofit with an LED right now.
of course,
They probably need to retrofit the whole thing.
they
Um,
should call you.
They, I, yeah, I've got other stuff going on though,
Oh,
so no
okay.
longer a part
Okay.
of that scope. But I will say the other thing that was really cool, there was a 4-story tall internal atrium within the security perimeter that had this really monumental sort of like wood wall with like little
Oh, I
slats.
remember I drew every single one of those squares
You drew,
individually and modeled it. Yes,
yes,
yes. I
which is
remember I
quite
did
quite the task, but this is what you do when you care about the design.
that was before they made panels like that off the shelf. We did every single one of those.
This was a cool thing about actually being a part of a company like Gensler because they always pushed you to do something that no one had
I
made. And
know.
frequently, what you'll do is you'll spend all this time kind of developing this thing, and it's kind
And
of a
then it
one off,
becomes something that everyone
and then it
makes.
becomes a product. So it's great to be a trendsetter. But we did light that from above with really powerful lights, and they were powerful enough that they essentially had to put an elevator cable rig above that would
Oh, I
lower the
remember that.
entire armature down to the level so you could relamp it. And that was actually back in the day before we really had LED technology that would have been a lifesaver because you had to constantly relamp
Mhm.
those fixtures. So it was
Mhm.
that was a task, but it was cool because lighting was such a critical part of it. We were using lots of reflective surfaces, like the back pane of glass, like the back pane of glass graphics, that it really made it important that we had good lighting in the
Yeah.
space. And because they're European, they have a very sort of like design forward vocabulary, so they had high
Oh, yeah,
expectations.
everything was super clean, simple, modern. I feel like even if we went in that space today, it would still look
It would be
great. Cause
timeless. Yeah,
yeah, I think we did something pretty timeless there.
I think we did too. So
But
I'm
you
pretty
and I
proud of
did
it.
lots of other fun projects together too. Did you work on LMI with me where we did the 7-story stair and edge lit that?
I
That
worked
was crazy.
I worked in the beginning on that, and then I think that's when I was then went over
You
to
went to
another
to the
another
when we
company.
went to the other company.